Hey everyone, Jim Phoenix here, and I can't wait to talk about the next What's Crackin'. We've got none other than the T&E channel sensational hit Haunted Discoveries with Brandon and Mustafa. That's right, they come and sit down and we talk about everything from haunteds and discoveries and haunting discoveries. Madness, I know. All that and more. The next What's Crackin'. Hit it.
And then I'll let you guys just take it away.
Too late. Hey everyone, Jim Phoenix here, and it's too late. Now we've got three special guests. Oh, three special guests and a orb. I see an orb. Today we are with Haunted Discovery crew of Mustafa and Brandon. Did I say your names halfway correct? Yes.
You got it.
Perfect. Awesome. Yay. So far, so good. I have to say, T&E gives me these screeners and I watch them. But I really look forward to yours because I have a friend who kind of either knows about the show coming out and he kept bugging me like, "Oh, did you see the show? Did you see the show?" I'm like, "Hey, I'll get to it." Did you see the show? Did you see the show? So right now, there's so much hype for your show before it even came out. How does that feel to you?
It's been awesome, man. I mean, meeting Mustafa on Ghost Hunters and working with each other for 5 years now. This has been a long time coming. Especially after we finished our run with Ghost Hunters, and then coming together and getting into the think tank and really trying to execute our vision in a way has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely a good ego boost, the fact that people want to see it. But I think it's just a testament to the work. I said this in our first episode, Gilded Age Ghosts, and Brandon and I really met in the work. We were like-minded in the way we approach paranormal investigating. And I think since day one, we're always like, man, wouldn't it be so cool if we could do this in a show or that? And now, not to sound all kind of like, oh, rainbows and butterflies about it, but we do get the chance to live our dream and work the way that we want to. So this has been a hashtag blessing for sure.
It comes off that way. I'm so glad you talked about your personal relationship because it comes off as a bunch of friends who want to do this correctly, who have the same values, who have the same underlying questions of, I believe, Brandon, I'm quoting you from the last episode, credible study. You want to do a credible study of this and a polite one. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
for the first episode at the Conrad Cadwa house, it was polite. It was we're here in peace. We are here to do things. We're here to be nice and always respectful. Is that part of the core? Is it
Absolutely.
respect?
No,
Okay.
yeah, no, 100%. First and foremost, respect is always key.
Right.
I mean, I'm a natural skeptic when it comes to paranormal phenomena and the idea that consciousness may survive death. But if we are dealing with what we possibly think is consciousness surviving death, we have to treat this as people. You're walking into someone's home, you're walking into a
Right.
space that is inhabited by these people, possibly. So, first and foremost, respect is key. And we want to make sure we're doing that as much as possible, but also, respecting the history before us as well.
Yeah, that's a huge part. I mean, just if you think about it, like Brandon said, like we both kind of came from backgrounds where I don't think our parents or grandparents would be too happy if we were walking around embarrassing, our family names going into places. So I think keeping your manners, but then also that respect comes from a place of intense study and research
Right.
and preparation for the investigation. So I believe that your best shot as a paranormal investigator, and combined, we have over 35 years experience in this field. The times that we've documented really compelling stuff has always come from following this methodology. And I feel like the entities that may be there, that resonates off of you. You can smell a person's intention even on a subconscious level. So if consciousness of an entity or person persists after death, those same basic human principles and values we believe persist there.
I think you hitting on a head, and I have a list of questions, and you're almost like consciously or subconsciously, I should say, going along with the flow of my list of questions without even knowing it. So this is great. This is awesome. Like
No,
done. Already introduced next. Same wavelength. I love it. And that's it. When when you grow up, you're like, I want to be a Ghostbuster. Like no. You have to have a job. Yeah, get one of those things. No one's. So you're going out with your real names. Like Jim Phoenix is definitely my real name, of course. I would never use a pen or stage name for this. But you're doing it for your real names, real backgrounds, and I think that's why people connect to you. It's the story of you. You're human. You're not just this caricature that was put out by T&E channel. It's like, you are you. And when you're dealing with the living people, how does that play in? How do you approach, like, how did you get your first one? I know it's the Cadwell house. How did you approach them? And how did you get like the setup there?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the respect factor that we talked about earlier, right? I mean, first and foremost, respect is key, but also within paranormal investigative, this space and this genre, it gets a bad rap sometimes with misinterpreting history and misinterpreting the way an investigation should be conducted. So we were very fortunate and lucky enough to have these beautiful historical family homes trust us with telling the actual story of these locations, right? So we
Right.
had to kind of ensure them first and foremost that we weren't going to misinterpret that history. We weren't going to create our own revisionist history, if you will. We wanted to tell these beautiful, emotional, familial stories that are really connected to these locations.
Yeah, I mean, Haunted Discoveries is a docu-series. It's not a
Right.
reality show. It's a docu-series, and anybody I think who's worked in like reality TV has found out that a lot of times stuff's really overproduced and set up in a way that's not really genuine. I mean, like, The Hills, that Lauren Conrad, all that stuff. It's like years came out. It's like that was just basically scripted. So because it's a docu-series, right, and like you said, that idea of the self, right? Yes, we're ourselves, but like I said before, we met in the work. The
Right.
situation and the investigation and the case and the history comes before ourselves. Like, we're not there trying to get like branded wine deals or something off of a reality show or something like that. It's like we want to tell the story. So Conrad Caldwell was a difficult place to get into. And I firmly believe that the only reason we gained access to this place, especially with their previous negative history with paranormal investigators, was because Brandon has dedicated the larger part of his life to helping historical foundations and societies. And your reputation stays with you. One bad investigation, or you faking evidence, or maybe not necessarily faking evidence, but trying to push a narrative that is not sincere or not pertinent to that location, will tarnish your reputation forever. So we're very, very careful to even even like the smallest of investigations where you are, you have to treat every single one very seriously and with
Right.
respect. So it's because he's dedicated himself to that. I believe that's why we got into Conrad Caldwell, and I'm very happy that that was our first case. It kind of like blew my mind away.
It's an amazing adventure. It's an amazing episode. And it was my first time really being exposed to this format because I'm not going to name them, but we can all think of a show that's more the reality TV show version of it. And yeah, the politeness wasn't their key word. Neither was scientific fact or trying to any type of method. And what I appreciated, especially in your episode, you did the before snapshot, right? You did a pre-test. You try to get the environmental factors. You brought in people who can do it. You brought in Zach. He's like, oh, this all equipment right there. He explained some of the equipment, especially like, oh, that's kind of new to me. Oh, that's what that does. Cool. And I'm not going to give too many spoilers because it did air yesterday. It did air Friday on T&E Creep Week. But there was a moment where you could have taken a small, just say, change in environment and blown it completely out of proportions. And oh my, and the first thing I started to write down was like, oh, this could be X, Y, Z. And the second I wrote that down, you guys said, oh, it also could be this. So you want to double check your instruments. You want to double check this. You want to see what happened. And I think that scientific study really sets you apart. That and this sounds kind of, you know, your politeness. You approaching ghosts as people because, they used to be something if there are there. So with your scientific method and your new tools, you've been here for 35 years combined. What tools have you seen in the past that you still keep? And which ones you like? What's your wish list now?
We've been very lucky to work with Dr. Harry Clore, who's one of our scientific consultants, who will be making an appearance on season 2, which is great,
Nice.
almost full time on the show. And he's the first person in history to receive 2 PhDs simultaneously in any discipline. So we've been very lucky to have guidance from basically a living historical figure. But the tried and true trifield meters. I mean, our philosophy is to utilize equipment from other technical industries and adapt it
Yes.
into our space, right? We have to have devices that give us quantifiable data. If it doesn't give us quantifiable data, what are we doing at the end of the day? At least from our mindset, at least from our
Right.
methodology and protocol. And the EMCCD camera, which makes its debut in episode 2 of the show, Friday the 13th, which is going to
Yes.
be fantastic. But this is a very sensitive piece of scientific equipment that's typically used by the digital imaging scientific community to record single photon events. And when I went to people like Dr. Harry Clore and other various professionals from technical industries, and I said, hey, if there's ghostly phenomena or paranormal phenomena, and we want to document that from a scientific standpoint, how would we go about that? And the theory of photon events was thrown out. And we started using this electron multiplying camera and utilize that. So we do have some of the old school devices like your old trifield meters and things like that, but we have also adopted equipment that's never been used in the paranormal space.
Yeah. And then I think in terms of ruling equipment out, and we do delve into this a lot in season 2, but it's basically there's paranormal investigating by yourself when you're just like, moseying about like, in an abandoned place and there's no camera crew and a bunch of electronics.
Right.
But then when you have a production crew, a lot of that equipment can be manipulated either subconsciously or unfortunately consciously in order to give false positives to make it look like something's happening. So we stay away from that. And we, in season 2, delve into the ways that these pieces of equipment can be manipulated. Might take some people off when we do it, but that's what our show is about. So it's like Brandon always says, getting out of the realm of pseudoscience into an actual scientific discipline. And then in terms of equipment that we use further and like wish list stuff,
Right.
it's all informed by data. So what are we collecting? What interesting stuff are we grabbing onto? And then how can we heighten that? Cool. We're getting stuff on, we use a ambisonic microphone and we get that sound. Great. So how can we enhance the audio documentation experience? Do we use it in specific instances where we're noticing, okay, cool, in this part of this investigation, we started getting spikes in barometric pressure. Let's put in an extra audio device in there and try to do short burst EVP sessions and like every minute or 2 minutes or so, and then go back and review it in real time. So then if we're hearing something and we can ask informed questions, that helps too. So we've got some really cool devices, a new one, especially that we're going to debut in our next season of Haunted Discoveries. We're constantly getting recommendations and just retooling our approach.
I love the answer. I'm smiling because I've done this before where I have purposely rigged the game and just show like, oh, I was like one of the meters. I palmed a rechargeable battery. Like, oh, look, this is going this way. Like, no, that's just my rechargeable battery making the meter go off. I mean, come on, guys. But it looks good on camera. And I'm not going to say people have probably done that before on camera, but I'm guessing they've done that before on camera. Yeah. So I'm glad you're taking that. And it's good to give credibility. It goes a long way is to debunking, is to demything of the pseudoscience and make it into more of a science, which it really is, right? I do have questions about something I've been toying with myself. You're talking about the going out by yourself, all the the camera crew and stuff like that. The iPhone apps. This is the ghost box. I'm pretty sure they're just putting labels to sell $5 apps and being done with it. How reliable do you think, if you can say?
Again, there's different ways to go about investigating the paranormal. And at the end of the day, it is a pseudoscience, technically, as of now. And we don't really know exactly what we're doing, and there's no experts, right? So what we can do is, talk to other professionals from technical industries that can guide us into the correct and direct way of trying to collect data. But, in my experience and our years of doing this, the apps, I would say, are detrimental to the field in a lot of ways. yes, the iPhone and different smartphones do have a lot of sensors within it. It's actually a really elaborate piece of equipment that can be utilized, but unfortunately, a majority of those apps that are out there are for entertainment purposes only, and many of which are labeled that way. So
Yes.
again, the phone could be utilized in certain ways properly, but majority of the apps entertainment purposes only. So no data associated with it, I'd say.
Yeah, there is one app, but it's not like a ghost specific app. There's a university in Germany. It's called Phyphox, Phyphox. It's free to download, and it basically just uses a variety of different sensors that are in smartphones. They're very complex sensors, and because a lot of smartphones, like the iPhone or like Samsung's phones, because they're mass produced at such like high volume, they're able to make high profit margins on packing these crazy sensors into these phones. So
Right.
the Firefox app is just a scientific app.
Yeah.
It's got a gyroscope in it. It's got a variety of different sensors. And if you set it and use it the right way, it can be a very powerful data collection tool, which then makes it a very powerful ghost hunting tool if
Yeah.
you want to use it for that.
Yeah, it was developed by the University of Aachen.
Yeah,
right?
Aachen,
Aachen.
AACHEN.
And it was used specifically and developed for a science literacy, to teach science to kids and to teach science experiments. So you can really utilize a phone in certain ways if you use it properly and have it in airplane mode, but just use the sensors and allow no contamination.
That's the key. Airplane mode and allow no contamination. Because when you're buying, in my opinion, if you're buying a device or using a device from different environmental agencies, right? And you're trying to make the device work, that's all the device really does. An iPhone or Samsung, whatever the phone is, has so many other things. It's not going to be perfect just for that one thing you really want to focus in on. It's going to be okay at a bunch of stuff because their market is just a consumer, is the entertainment use. So thanks for clearing that one up. 'Cause I was like, oh man, there's all these things coming out. I don't really think that's true, but
No.
I'll ask the experts in that one. Now, when you are reviewing your footage, how long for a 30-minute episode?
Oh man, hours and hours.
Hours?
Oh yeah, because we use multiple control cameras, we use multiple
Yeah.
audio devices, data collection. So our EDI pluses that we use are all being recorded at all times during the
Oh
investigation. We're
man.
talking, I mean, close to sometimes 80 hours,
Yeah.
90 hours combined of all this, and it's a tedious process, but it is the most important process in what we're
Right.
doing, because we have to be thorough not only from the beginning to the end of the investigation and the analysis to really understand what's happening. And if we're fortunate enough or lucky enough to find something that we can't explain, then that's when we take it to someone that may be of assistance and telling us, hey, this is completely natural. This is what the device actually does.
Yeah, I mean, this is the job. Like, not to borrow a line from The Wire, but that if you're not reviewing your own evidence, I'm sorry, you're
Right.
not investigating the paranormal properly. I don't think you're doing any investigation properly if you are not sitting there hours a day and really reviewing the evidence and consciously reviewing the evidence, like sitting there and just paying attention that whole time. It can be mind numbing, but if this is what you want to do, this is what you got to do. It's just a part of the job.
Right. And that's why I think your show is aptly titled Haunted Discoveries, which again is going to be on T&E channel, especially during Creep Week, which is August. Wow. Fast forward or rewind, October 6th and 15th for your next episode, Friday the 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. 9 p.m. Do you think Haunted Discoveries, what branding are you putting out? I'm not talking about t-shirts, something like that, but what do you want to put forward with the title of your show? You could have called it anything. You could have called it absolutely anything. Why Haunted Discoveries?
I mean, because it's a discovery, either way, shape, or form. If we're not
Right.
collecting data, if we are collecting data, we're learning about history through this process. We're living this motion. We're living within this historical moment and really reliving a lot of these crazy stories. And so, I mean, everything we do is a discovery, no matter what. Again, if it's we find a device is not working properly and it's a false signal, or if it's
Right.
something we can't explain, we're still discovering something within the process.
Yeah, and our main goal of the series is to prove, I think, that science can be scary. If you're watching paranormal shows in order to because you like being scared of the supernatural or something like that, it can be scary. But it's also very fulfilling to just document a process that someone is interested in. If you are interested, it's going to be interesting. And I think seeing people passionately at work trying to figure something out, and because we're just so wrapped up in really trying to make these haunted discoveries, that's what I like to see on the show. That's what I think makes our show engaging. And as a result, we've actually discovered some crazy things that aren't even necessarily paranormal related. They could be an explanation, but it's like we're talking like historical finds. Like it's insane, and it's, especially in later seasons, it's really nuts. It's like I remember like FaceTiming my mom like from like the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, and be like, "You're not gonna believe what we just found," and it's just it's nuts. Like I don't know. I feel like a real life Indiana Jones sometimes. It's pretty cool.
That I'm glad you brought that up because that is part of the show I really do enjoy. When I was watching it yesterday, which was Friday 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, which for Friday the 13th, episode 2 cops out. I'm seeing this. You are absolutely hitting home all of these sciencey things. You're hitting home the true discovery. You're questioning. I believe Brandon said you're a skeptic. I'm also a skeptic. So I see something like, okay, now prove it. And then I'll try my best to prove it. I won't try to disprove it, but I'll try to do my best to understand it, to understand what's happening. I'll understand could be something else. And I love how the first episode starts out. Like, is there anything that might give us altered state of consciousness that could possibly explain maybe hallucinations, maybe hearing things, maybe something like that? And you start off a very firm base of let's see what's not here so we can see what could be here. And I appreciate you showing that on TV. I appreciate the conversation it allows people to have. Now, I'm not going to spoil next episode. I'm not going to spoil anything else. But I will ask, are there any types, and you kind of mentioned this a bit, Mustafa, is there any type of discovery you mentioned or can kind of talk about without talking about, if you know what I mean, that made you go, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this episode?
I
Yeah,
think
I'm seeing smiles. Yeah.
It's this one.
Yep.
I mean, coming up. I mean, and that's again to talk about the point of the importance of reviewing evidence. I mean, we didn't capture that during the investigation. That was after the fact. Nights
Really?
after, Brandon's like, Mustafa, you gotta see this. And I'm just like, every time I hear that from him, I'm like, I know it's friggin' good. And then I went over there and we probably watched that over 100 times.
Yeah, episode 2 that's going to be airing on Friday the 13th. It's titled "A Desperate Witch," and it's specifically about a urban legend, a myth within Old Town Louisville and Old Louisville that has some interesting facts to it that will leave to viewers to decide and see. But we captured, I think, in my almost 20 years of doing this, the most amazing piece of footage that we've ever collected, and that's going to be on episode 2 here on Friday the 13th.
I can't wait. I'm gonna have to get T&E to pretty please give me that one. So when we're talking about haunted discoveries, as we both said, as we all said right now, Friday the 13th. How cool is that? 9 p.m. Eastern Pacific on T&E channel. When we're talking about the discovery part of it, is there anything, I know kind of the answer in my mind already, but I'm gonna ask you anyways. Is there anything that you kind of did as a narrative that just didn't work out? Like you thought it's me one thing and just kind of went. Brrr.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I would say, the last case on this one. It's like all of the history that we were told about the place when Malia went and fact checked with the local historical society turned out to be not true, and they were like very happy we were going in there to clarify it. Even rolling up to the place, we were like, I don't know, it's not that big, it's kind of small. We don't know what we're gonna do here. We don't know what we're gonna investigate. But then something happened, like when we stepped inside and we began to talk to the current owner of this building. I distinctly remember interviewing her and the feeling I got in the place. I remember looking over at Brandon. We're checking out the monitor, like looking at the interview, taking notes. I was like, and we're like, yeah, there's like something here. And then it was something
completely out of left field. And again, like all of the stories that have been told about this specific building just simply weren't true. And the historical society there locally has been trying to dispel these rumors and myths for decades and decades to try and tell the actual history of this place. And we walk in thinking that, oh, this is what it is, and lo and behold, it has nothing to do with these stories that have been told over the years. And all of a sudden, the narrative completely changes. What we thought we knew just wasn't the truth, and we find something pretty incredible.
I love it because it's educational as well. That's why I like you bringing the historical component into your show, and you bring in the scientific component into your show, and they both intertwine, and you challenge the narrative, and you're open and receptive to everything that happens, and you do it in a respectful way. And I honestly, it's my new favorite show, Haunted Discoveries. Check it out Friday the 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific on T&E channel. Thank you so much. Whew. Time does fly. But thank you again, Brandon, Mustafa, and everyone. Check it out. Thanks, everyone. Bye.